Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to News Dose, and we got a fascinating, albeit surprising story to open up the week with. According to some new information, one of Xbox and Bethesda's biggest games might actually come sooner than expected given some of Microsoft's latest changes. There's even speculation that this might involve a brand new studio from them, but there is one caveat, and we're going to get into all of that today. Now, we also got some exciting Nintendo news to talk about, so make sure to stay tuned for all of that. But first, I do want to thank my supporters on Patreon and on YouTube memberships. Thank you just so much for what you do, and you will receive this video through early access. Let's go get right into things, though, starting off with Judas. It's been a little while since we've gotten an update for this game, and I know there's a lot of excitement and a lot of anticipation, given that this comes from the BioShock creator, Ken Levine. Anybody who was a part of the PS360 era remembers just how special that series was. And, I mean, we've had a lot of games since then that's been inspired by BioShock in one way or another, but nothing that's really recaptured that magic to the T. So there's at least hope that Judas can kind of be that game. And if anything else, well, Ken Levine is saying the right things. In a recent interview with Night Dive Studios, he said that Judas is a very old-school game. You buy the game and you get the whole thing. I know that's just crazy talk, but he continued on to say that there's no online component, there's no live service, because everything that we do is in service of telling the story and transporting the player. So yeah, this is music to my ears and probably to pretty much every gamer out there. It's honestly kind of sad when you start to think about it that a quote like this hits us in such a profound way. But that also kind of highlights the sad reality of modern day gaming. Modern AAA publishers have truly lowered the bar so much that by simply not being scummy, we're cheering for the world to hear. I mean, it is what it is, but it's all the more reason to hope that Judas meets its lofty expectations. Now, unfortunately, we do have a canceled game to talk about, being the next Guilty Gear. And this one honestly took me by surprise when I heard it, because Guilty Gear tends to be very good. I mean, we're talking about some of the better fighting games within the modern era. But according to Insider Gaming and what they had heard, sources say that the game's cancellation took place within the last couple of weeks. As far as a reasoning behind it, nothing was specifically mentioned by those who spoke under the condition of anonymity. However, when asked what this meant for the future of the series, one source said it was back to the drawing board, but that based on what they knew, it wasn't finished. So, I mean, if there's any silver lining here at all, it sounds like the Guilty Gear series still has a future. But unfortunately, that future is now a little bit further out than what fans originally expected. The last release was back in 2021, so, I mean, by this point, it might end up being closer to 2030 by the time the next entry launches. If you are a fan of Guilty Gear, though, just to kind of be optimistic here, Marvel TOCON is set for next year, and that is another Arc System fighting game, so it might not be necessarily the same exact thing, but at the very least, it could end up having some Guilty Gear DNA. Now, here's a bit of an interesting development for Xbox on PlayStation. I completely understand that there's a polarizing opinion about their multi-platform strategy, but one thing has become abundantly clear. They are finding success on the PlayStation 5. We saw that last year with the releases of Sea of Thieves and Grounded. And now we can also add Forza Horizon 5 to the list as well. According to a Turn 10 employee on LinkedIn, they wrote that Forza Horizon 5 sold 2 million copies on the PlayStation 5 in a single month, which is incredibly impressive for a staggered release. Though I don't think that this is necessarily all that shocking. Forza Horizon 5 is an incredible game, and truthfully, it kind of fills a void within the PlayStation 5 library. Sony has Gran Turismo as their sim racer. It's a very good sim racer, but they don't really have a great arcade racer, which is where Forza Horizon excels. Now, it is important to note that this employee has since removed that statement, though that's likely because they probably weren't supposed to share that information, but it once again highlights the type of success that Xbox can have on PlayStation. And to be completely fair here, we're starting to see that this strategy isn't necessarily exclusive to just Xbox. As we learned last week, Sony is now porting over Helldivers 2 to Xbox, and they've already been porting over some of their smaller games to Nintendo as well. So it's still in the early days, and I think it's hard for some of us to maybe wrap our brains around, but we are seemingly moving into an era when supporting rival consoles isn't completely off limits like it used to be. Now, Xbox seemingly has a lot less limits than Sony, but even for Sony, if Helldivers 2 finds success on Xbox, or if Patapon finds success on the Switch, then yeah, you can bet that Sony will probably follow up with even more rival ports. Now, I'm not expecting their big single-player AAA games to come over to Xbox and Nintendo, but, some of their smaller stuff and their live service games, that could definitely happen. If anything, it's definitely uncharted territory by this point, but let me know how you feel about all of this multi-platform rival support from PlayStation and Xbox in the comments below. Okay, now speaking of Xbox, let's go ahead and get to the big news here, because according to Jez Corden, Fallout 5 has been fully greenlit. And you might be thinking to yourself, well, no duh. We all knew that this game was going to happen at some point, and yeah, you're right. But that's where I'm going to go ahead and stop you, because I'm not saying that it's been greenlit in the sense that it's going to launch 10 years from now when Todd Howard eventually finishes up with The Elder Scrolls 6. Now, what I'm trying to say here is that development is seemingly starting early, as in right now. So instead of expecting a 2035 launch like we were previously expecting, no, this game might actually release as early as 2030. Though I feel like that might be stretching it a bit. 2031 or 2032 seems more likely to me, just given that modern-day development cycles are quite lengthy. But what's happening here is that on the Xbox 2 podcast, Jez explained that he had heard that the canceled Blackbird MMO from ZeniMax was done to free up resources for Fallout development, a trade-off, if you will. Now, this kind of echoes a rumor that we had heard about last week when VGC's Jordan Midler claimed that multiple Fallout games were in development, including the one that we had all been asking for. Now, to me, that implies a New Vegas sequel, but again, he did say multiple Fallout games, so that doesn't rule out Fallout 5. Now, Jez hasn't been able to confirm the New Vegas sequel himself, but I think with all of the information that we currently have, and this goes all the way back to last year, Microsoft 100% wants to invest more into the Fallout franchise because the Amazon series proved to be a big hit for them. And I think it might have been even more popular than what they were initially expecting. But that was also a big problem for them because they didn't really have anything to pair it with. They didn't have a remaster, they didn't have a new game, or really anything of great note other than a simple update for Fallout 4. And to be fair, Fallout 4 saw a big boost in player count, so I'm sure that they were happy about all of that, but I 100% guarantee that they would have preferred some kind of new release that they could have used to fully capitalize on that series. So it was a bit of a missed opportunity for them. And a lot of this stems from Todd Howard himself. As a lot of us know, Todd doesn't want to work on Fallout until after The Elder Scrolls 6, which, hey, that's perfectly fine. And I think that's probably the right choice for him as well. I mean, I'll be completely honest with you here. I prefer The Elder Scrolls series over Fallout. Not to say that I don't like Fallout, but I do prefer The Elder Scrolls, and I want his full, undivided attention on The Elder Scrolls 6. But at the same time, Microsoft being the publisher, they might not be as thrilled with having to wait an additional 10 years for what could be one of their biggest and most important franchises in the modern era. So that's where today's news comes in. Microsoft wants to fast-track the Fallout series, but this does beg a pretty major question. If Fallout 5 was, in fact, fully greenlit as claimed, then who's working on it? Again, Bethesda and Todd Howard are currently focused on The Elder Scrolls 6, and that'll probably remain the case for the foreseeable future. So if they're not working on it, then who is? And that's where the speculation has come in that maybe, just maybe, they might have spun up a new studio to focus on the Fallout franchise, which honestly isn't completely unheard of for Microsoft. I mean, you have to kind of keep in mind that they have Halo Studios, they have Turn 10, they have the Coalition, and the Age of Empires Studios, all of which focus on a single franchise. That's what they oversee. And one thing that we do know about Team Xbox is that they have a lot of Fallout talent across a multitude of their studios. They have Obsidian, they have NXL, they have Bethesda, they have ZeniMax, and all these studios have some Fallout background. So they could easily pull talent within their studios, talent that's maybe interested in Fallout to foster the Fallout series. And that doesn't necessarily mean that Bethesda Game Studios and Todd Howard won't eventually work on Fallout 5. Todd Howard could still help write the overarching story for Fallout 5. And then this team, whoever is currently working on it, can maybe start development, and then Bethesda could join its development later on once they're finished up with The Elder Scrolls 6. So think of it as a bit of a head start for Fallout 5. But either which way, I think that if you're a Fallout fan, if you're just craving some new Fallout experiences, then I'd say today's news is fairly exciting. But definitely let me know what your thoughts are in the comments below. Okay, now one last thing before we go. We're now currently hearing from a good source that a Nintendo Direct will indeed happen this month. This comes from Nate the Hate on his podcast. Make sure to go check that video out if you're interested. But according to his sources, a Direct will happen sometime after the release of Donkey Kong Bonanza, which I think makes a lot of sense. Outside of Pokemon Legends EA, that's really the last big known release date for Nintendo Switch 2 games in 2025. There's just a lot of mystery around their games this year, including Metroid Prime 4. We still don't have a release date for that game. So we need an update. But before we get too excited about some kind of first-party, shocking, massive reveal, Nate speculated that this Direct will more so be about third-party games. He's not expecting another tentpole first-party release in 2025. Now, that's not to say that we won't hear about some smaller first-party games. Apparently, Camelot is far along with their next game as one such example. We heard news about that this weekend, which my guess is another sports title. And they do like to release their games during the summer period, so that could end up being a surprise announcement. But we definitely need some release dates for games like Final Fantasy VII Remake and Elden Ring as two such examples. Now, we'd also previously heard about The Witcher 3 on the Switch 2. I think that would be a pretty cool announcement. But either way, it sounds like that big Switch 2 news, that big Direct that fans have been waiting for, will happen this month, probably closer to the end of July. Anyways, though, that's going to be this episode. But until next time, make sure to subscribe, ring that bell, and peace out.